Hello there, and welcome back to Play the Game with Steve. And today we're going to talk about Shadowcat, Kitty Pryde, and understanding the mechanics. So these series really focuses on the character, the design, and the mechanics, some of the rules that might be a little tricky when you are playing these characters for the first time. We're going to take a look at the synergies within the hero kit, the tactics you can use. We're also going to talk about her best aspect. And then finally, we're going to take a look at some of her nemesis cards and all that. But most importantly, we're going to take a look at what best cards to use within each aspect that you would want to play Shadowcat in. All right, so if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. Remember, we have videos like this for all the characters. Last week we posted an ultimate guide on Colossus. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely go check it out. And then let's begin. All right, so Kitty Pryde has a recovery of 3, a hand size of 6, 9 hit points. She is a mutant with a setup ability to put your mass form upgrade into play solid side face up. And then phase control action, you can flip your mass form upgrade limit once per round. So, which means that even in Alter Ego, you can decide if you want to be 10 phased or a solid. So that's pretty cool. On her hero side, she is a 2/2/2 X-Man with a hand size of 5. She has selective intangibility. While you are in phased mass form, Shadowcat ignores the guard and patrol keywords and any crisis icons in play. So only when you are phased can you ignore everything, all right? But if you are solid, you still have to abide by the guard rules and all of that stuff. So this is where Shadowcat becomes a little tricky. All right, so let's take a look at this. So this is her solid side mass form. This is a permanent, so this will start the game into play. You don't shuffle this card with your deck. It is also a hero resource. Exhaust this card, you can generate a fist resource, a physical resource for an attack or a defense event, which is very good. And response, after you attack or defend in solid mass form, flip this card. Now, one thing is that it's important to notice that this is a response, and a response is something you can trigger when you choose to trigger it. You don't have to trigger the response. It is not automatic. So you can attack a couple times, and on your final attack, you can decide, all right, this is my last attack. I can't do anything else. I'm going to flip to my phased form, because the phased form reads, it is a mass form with permanent. While Shadowcat is defending, she cannot take damage. So that is very, very good. So she can't take damage, but only when she is defending. So that means you need to use your basic power to exhaust or use cards that have the defense traded keyword. All right, and this now is a forced response, and this is what's very, very important. This is a forced response after you attack or defend in phased mass form. Flip this card. So this is extremely important because this is not optional. So as soon as you attack or defend, you gotta flip, but you're safe if you just want to thwart this turn. If you're playing in, let's say, Injustice, and you want to use your basic thwart, you can stay phased all night long. All night. All right, so that is it for that phased and solid mass form. All right, now let's take a look at some of her signature cards. All right, the first card she has is her signature ally, which is not Colossus, thankfully. So this Lockheed is a 2-cost ally, 1 thwart, 1 attack, a dragon and an X-Men with 2 health, and response after Lockheed enters play. You are solid, deal 2 damage to enemy, phased, remove 2 threat from a scheme. So that's pretty decent, you know, so he comes in, removes 3 or deals 2 and 1, and you can kind of do it however you choose. So that is a pretty good card and is very thematic to Shadowcat in the 80s cartoons. All right, so Kitty's Room is a 1-cost support that says Alter Ego action. You can exhaust Kitty's Room. If you are in solid mass form, you heal 2 damage. If you are in phased mass form, you draw a card. Now remember, you are allowed to change your mass form in Alter Ego, so that can really, you know, help you if you need to recover without having to exhaust to recover. So this can heal you for 4 in 2 turns, or you can draw 2 extra cards. All right, then we have a couple of cards. First one is Intangible Interference, hero response. After you ignore the crisis icon on a scheme, you exhaust intangible interference and remove 2 threat from that scheme. So again, this only works if you are in phased form. All right, and it only works and can only trigger if there is a crisis icon. All right, so this is very, very important. If there's not that, this card kind of is useless. So if you're playing a scenario where there is no crisis icons, this is not a card that you need to put down early. All right, so make sure you know what you're playing up against before you spend the resources. Now, acute control is the counterpart. Again, is a 1 cost upgrade. Hero response after you ignore the guard or patrol keyword on a minion. So guard or patrol minion, you exhaust acute control and deal 2 damage to that minion. So that again, so you have to be phased to be able to ignore. But when you are phased and you ignore something, bam, either a guard or a patrol, then you get to deal that 2 damage. So again, these cards are very situational on what scenario you are playing. One thing that I do want to specify, it is not limited to making a basic thwart or basic attack to trigger these. These are hero responses after you ignore. So if you have an event that will do an attack and bypass a guard, yes. If you have an event that bypasses a crisis, yes, you can trigger these off an event, not only a basic power. Our final upgrade is Phased and Confused that you can only play in hero form. It is a 3 cost upgrade that you attach to an enemy, max 1 per enemy, and it's a force interrupt. When attached enemy would attack, you discard this card instead. Then you confuse that enemy. So for an enemy that's steady or stalwart, this bypasses the steady and stalwart. So since he is not confused, it just completely nullifies the attack. So it's even better than a stun, especially against a stalwart enemy. But against a stalwart enemy, you will not get the benefit of the confuse, but at least you prevent the attack. So there, it's kind of fun where you can play off certain villains and play this differently depending on what scenario you are choosing. So for me, this is one of my favorite cards. The fact that if you get just a regular villain without stalwart or steady, this will prevent an attack and confuse. Man, it's the best of both worlds. Then we have a couple of events in her kit. My favorite event is the Quick Shift. She has 2 copies of that event. This is a defense and a superpower. So again, this allows you to defend without defending. So that is very, very good. So when you are phased, hero interrupt defense when an enemy attacks. If you are in solid mass form, you change to phased form. All right. So then you change. That means, and this will count as defending. And then you will take no damage, but then you will revert back to your solid form. But if you already phase when this happens, you will draw 2 cards. Now, let's say you have 2 of these in your hand. You can play both of them in the same time and then draw 4 cards. The Airwalks, there's 2 copies of Airwalk, and this is another 1 cost event. Superpower Thwart, hero action. You remove 2 threat from a scheme. 4 threat if you are in phased mass form. So again, really, really wants you to be in phased mass form with Shadowcat. Her kit kind of really plays off being in phased form. But we do have some nice options here when you want to go into solid form. All right, the next one is Phased Strike. Again, another one that really focuses on being phased. Attack, it is a 3 cost attack superpower. It deals 6 damage to an enemy, and if you are in phased mass form, you may discard an attachment with the hero action or hero response from that enemy. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with this card. Again, situational to a few villains, but any villain that has some good attachments. I'm looking at you, Venom Goblin. This is a very solid card to play. And then I think her best attack, and this is the one that you really want to use while you are in solid mass form, it is the Shadowcat Surprise. And she has 3 copies of that for a reason. This is a hero action attack for 2 costs. It says attack, deal 3 damage to an enemy, and then ready your hero. So this is your combo card to be able to ready Shadowcat over and over. This is the card. This is the card that enables a lot of really fun synergies with Shadowcat. And we're going to go see those synergies within the different aspects. But first, she has a obligation that is called permanently phased. You give it to the Kitty Pryde player. Flip your mass form upgrade to phased, and you cannot attack, defend, or change mass form. You have to go to alter ego and exhaust Kitty Pryde and remove permanently phased from the game. So this is very, very important. Because it says you cannot attack, defend, or change form, all of your attack events and stuff like that are all useless. Okay, so you really have to go down, and this is not a forced flip like some of the other obligations, which says you may flip to alter ego to do something. This, you stay in hero form, and then you have to go to alter ego and then exhaust. So if you're exhausted, then you might lose 2 turns in alter ego. It is very brutal. As far as obligations go, I think it's very thematic and very on point to where Kitty Pryde is. Her nemesis is the White Queen. All right, she is brutal too. She is a 1 scheme, 1 attack, elite psionic with 5 health and villainous. While White Queen is engaged with you, you are confused. And as a boost card, you will also be confused. Now, here is the most important rules part about this. You are confused, and you are like basically permanently confused. Once you get rid of her, then and only then can you remove your confused status card. So you are confused, and when she goes away, then you can thwart and do a thwart action to get rid of that confusion or play something that gets to remove it. But while she's there, that is staying. Her the side scheme that she comes with is called the Hellfire Club. Starts at 2 per player, has an acceleration icon. It says when defeated, the player who defeated the scheme searches the encounter deck and discard pile in the set aside area for a copy of the Hellfire Spawn and puts it into play and then engage with them and then shuffle. So that is not too bad. And then her a condition is there an attachment here. The other one is the telepathic restraint. You attach this to your identity, and while telepathic restraint is attached to your identity, you are stunned. So again, this is a permanent stunned until you get rid of this card, and then until you have to exhaust to get rid of your stuns. Very dangerous. So this is an action. You can spend 2 mental resources to discard this card. So the only good thing is you don't have to go to alter ego to get rid of it. So that's a good thing, but you still have to spend 2 mentals to do that. And then finally, there's 2 copies of the Hellfire Spawns, and they're very thematic. 1 scheme, 2 attack, guard, patrol, and surge. So again, the surge will only trigger when they are revealed. And from the Hellfire Club, they just get put into play. And again, with the boost icon, if they come in as a boost card, they will only get put into play and not revealed. So anytime you see put into play, surge does not trigger. Surge only triggers off the reveal. So again, very cool because that lets you use your 2 superpower abilities to ignore guard, patrol, and all of that. Now, she did come in aggression, but I feel aggression, though it is a very cool synergy with her, has some very nice synergies, I really feel that protection definitely has her number. Protection, for me, Shadowcat, it is all about protection, and she can do it so well that most of the cards in protection will just synergize extremely well with her. So the first cards we're going to look at is a couple of allies that you should include in her deck. So the first one is Jocasta. Jocasta will bring back the quick shifts. So again, from the discard pile, and then it's a free cost. So Jocasta, very good combination with Shadowcat to bring back that quick shift, that free defense, or that extra draw 2 cards. Super solid. The other one I would definitely recommend is Iceman. The fact that he comes in with 3 ice counters, and this is where Shadowcat can sometimes be a little weak, is if she gets swarmed with minions. But Iceman really can help counterbalance the minions coming in. So with the freeze counters, he can freeze 3 minions, and then when she starts getting her Shadowcat surprises, she can just take care of those minions. Toad sweet. So that's why Iceman is definitely an ally that I would 100% include. Because Shadowcat is so good with the protection events and then with the taking no damage, cards like Unflappable, Hard to Ignores are cards that you 100% want to add to your deck. Now, depending on what strategy you want to use, Electrostatic Armor gives you that 1 damage to an attacking character when you are defending. The Dauntless, if you're going for a perfect defense strategy, obviously. If you want to do multiplayer strategy, putting those Indomitables will give you extra readies. And then obviously if you want to pay off all of that defense, you're going to be putting in a Flow Like the Water. So every defense event is also going to result into a damage. So that adds up pretty quickly. And then Nerves of Steel, which also pays for all the defense events that you might want to add to your deck. So that's it for the upgrades. Obviously, Shadowcat can make the best use of this because the fact that she can't take damage is 100% a synergy that you should explore and exploit to maximize your games against some of the villains. Because you are flipping back and forth from forms, Perseverance is just a no-brainer here. Being able to give you some tough status cards every time you change form is just such an easy way to always prevent all the damage that be coming your way. Alright, one of another very, very good cards here for Shadowcat in protection is the Defiance card. Obviously, when you are phased, that means you do not need to defend. So this kind of acts like your quick shift because it is count as defending. So then, again, you're taking no damage and you're getting rid of a boost card. Another one that's very, very strong here, it is Desperate Defense. This is an obvious when you are in phase form. You're sure that you're never going to take damage, but the requirement for you to defend means you have to exhaust. You know you're never going to take damage. But here's a really fun combo here that you can do: Desperate Defense and Quick Shift. So let's say you're in your solid mass form, and then you have a Desperate Defense in hand, and you're in your solid mass form. So you can play Quick Shift to go to your phased form. And because you've played a defense, you could pay Desperate Defense. You do get the +2 defense. It's not going to do anything. But because you now become phased and take no damage, you'll be able to ready with the Desperate Defense, which I thought was a very interesting 2-card combo here with the Quick Shift and the Desperate Defense here if you are in solid mass form. Other cards in protection that also pay off of that Quick Shift combo here is the Never Back Down. Same as the Desperate Defense. You'll be able to stun the villain. So if you're facing off against a villain that can punish you a lot, being able to stun him is great. And if you're worried about threat removal, cards like Not Today are also going to be super duper efficient here to remove some threat at the same time as giving you a perfect defense. So those are really good cards here. One other card in multiplayer when you are phased that is extremely good for defending against other players if you're playing in a multiplayer game is the Preemptive Strike. This will allow you to defend for other people without having to exhaust Shadowcat. And then you can probably trigger other cards as well. But the Preemptive Strike will cancel the boost icons and count as a defense. And then the villain will come at you. And if you are phased, you will take no damage. So that is very, very solid. Here's a few extra combos here. Again, if you are in solid mass form and there is a minion attacking, this is a card that nobody really plays off of. But First Hit in a control setting for Shadowcat for a perfect defense. Having a minion attack against any player. This is really good for multiplayer, by the way. You can, if you are in solid form, you can initiate the attack, deal 2 damage to the minion, and then flip right back to phased form. Where that's one of the things that can be frustrating with the Shadowcat is like, oh no, I am not in phase form anymore. I can still take damage. So this is a little card that really synergizes well off of that. One card that we don't really think about with Shadowcat, but she is very good at control. And Get Behind Me, this is from the core set, and this is a card that here you can really, really exploit
because when a treachery card is revealed, you can have the villain attack you instead and then cancel that effect. This is super solid with Shadowcat. Again, with all the things in protection that can make her ready, that can make her change forms. So taking an extra attack from the villain mostly is never going to be that much of a pain and that much of a hindrance. But this will allow you to cancel Shadows of the Past in a multiplayer game. It's going to, and especially her Shadows of the Past, which is very, very annoying. Definitely Get Behind Me should be in your... If you're thinking about control, put a couple of Get Behind Me's for shizzle. Cards like Powerful Punch. Now, this is where it's important because Powerful Punch is an attack and a defense event. So again, since it's an attack event, you will be able to use your solid mass form to pay for it. If you are running Nerves of Steel, you'll also be able to use Nerves of Steel to pay for that card. So that's one thing that's really good. But if you are in solid form and you perform the Powerful Punch, so you will deal 4 damage when an enemy initiates an attack, you'll deal 4 damage to that enemy. So then, since you performed an attack, you can trigger the solid form and go to phase form. And that's before the attack resolves of the enemy. Then you will have defended because this has the defense trait, which means you will take 0 damage from the villain's attack. And then after the villain does his attack, you will go back to solid form. So this is one of those little things that's a little bit complicated, but it is a fun way to play off of Shadowcat and her ability to flip forms. So you can start, if you have the Powerful Punch, it is very good. Now, here's the dilemma. If you have Powerful Punch and you are in phased mass form, if you do the Powerful Punch, what's going to happen is you will have attacked, which means you will flip to solid form. Even though you are defending, you are no longer in phased form, so you will take the villain's damage. So this is something that is extremely important to point out because this is something where it's very, very easy to mess up here. And those are some of the best protection cards. So there was a lot here to talk about because, again, I really believe that Shadowcat in protection, it is her go-to aspect. All right, now let's take a look at some of the other aspects that can really, really make her shine. All right, so then the first one, let's talk about aggressive Shadowcat and where you can really, really have some fun with her. Again, cards like Dropkick, really good. This will allow you to deal some damage. Stun, again, you already have 1 physical, so you only need like a power of aggression, or if you have martial prowess and a physical. So you can have, easily you can do the Dropkick often just by paying 1 or 2 resources. And again, stunning the villain and drawing extra cards, beautiful. Taking advantage of cards that will stun the villain like that, which are phased and confused. So most likely there's going to be a lot of times where the villain will be phased or will be stunned or confused. So cards like Press the Advantage will give you extra damage and extra card draw and allow you to change forms if you need to be in a particular form for a low cost here. Another great card, obviously, it is the Surprise Attack. So you'll be able to do that, come back, go back. So there's so many things that you can do. So super cool combo here is play Quick Shift, draw 2 cards. Okay, villain finishes his attack. Okay, you need to go to solid because you changed forms. You use your solid to do Surprise Attack and then deal the 4 damage because it is a physical, then flip back to phase. Villain attacks you again, then you just defend and take no damage again. So this, again, such a sweet, sweet combo that you can use. The other great combo that you can use is the toe-to-toe. Now, why this combo is also very, very efficient is you can play this while you are in phased form, and it says choose an enemy, that enemy attacks you. And because the enemy attacks you, you can defend. And since you are phased, you will take no damage. Then, after that, then the 5 damage is the attack, and then you would change to solid form.
So, and then again, after you make an attack, so that attack happened, you change to solid form, and then you can do another attack, and then just do other stuff here. So that's why, like, aggression has some really cool cards with her, but not as many as protection that really fits the mold. All right, then let's take a look at Justice. All right, so Justice here, what I really enjoy with Justice is going with a little bit of a shield strategy with Shadowcat. Cards like Homeland Intervention, very easy, very cheap, will allow you to keep the main scheme often to 0, and then allow you to really focus on cards that are fun, like Turn the Tide and then Pivotal Moment, just by using a couple of shield cards that you can keep on the ground. So very easy to deck thin your deck with a couple of shield support cards, and then 0 for 6 threat is just beautiful. And then you can focus all of Shadowcat on just attacking instead of just being the Justice player and just always removing threat. So this allows you to really play off of the different synergies of Justice and in an aggressive way. Obviously, we have other cards like Lay Down the Law, because you will be changing forms to obviously really go into this option. And where it's cool as well is cards like Justice Served. After you remove all the last threat, you get to ready your hero. So again, you'll be able to play these cards off of each other and really build a deck that will synergize and have lots of damage in Justice, which is sometimes what's lacking of the aspect. All right, then we're going to move into Leadership. So this, big shout out to Brian De Castro, who really showcased this in one of our games. Shadowcat Leadership, just really going off of the Moxies, because again, changing form, giving her all these plus bonuses. Cards like Morale Boost that focus off of that. R&D Facility, and then really combining this with cards like Go All Out, because of her Shadowcat Surprise, gets the ready, plays the Moxies, becomes stronger, then goes all out, and then you can find ways to ready a couple more times. If you're going to go off that type of strategy, I'm gonna include a couple of basic cards that you want to include in your deck. Cards like Tenacity and the Symbiote Suit. I normally don't talk about the Symbiote Suit because obviously it can be good with any character. But in this type of strategy where you buff up your hero, the Symbiote Suit with Shadowcat, it just makes such perfect sense. She becomes a 3/3/3, so minimum Go All Out is doing like 9 or 12 damage for an exhaust, and 2. So 2 for 12 damage is just beautiful, and that's the minimum damage that it can do, right? So it can go even more from there. So that is some of the synergies for Leadership Shadowcat. Again, there's other ways in Leadership to play, but this is a very unique thing to Shadowcat, and this is what I like to talk about when heroes have unique ways to play within an aspect. And this, for me, was a very big success. Watching Brian play that, I was just beautiful. So big shout out to Brian De Castro off of that deck. All right, now finally in basic, some of the best basic cards that you can include. The X Gene. This is from the is it Rogue? Yeah, it's from Rogue's Hero Pack. X Gene with Shadowcat is just so beautiful because she has so many events. Her Shadowcat Surprise, her Intangible Strikes, and all that kind of other stuff. So all of her events would be able to be, you can pay them with this. If you combine this with obviously Def Focus and her kit, that's 3 resources, 3 1-cost resources here, which just pay for her other kit, and very easy to set up. So these are must includes in a Shadowcat deck. Some of those basic cards that just make tons of sense. The last one I would definitely include 2 or 3 of is the Ready to Rumbles. Again, after you change form, you discard to ready. Again, this combos off with the Leadership deck. It can combo off with the aggressive deck. It combos off with Justice and in protection. So these 3 cards are definitely must includes in your Shadowcat build. Now, if you are building the leadership deck, or if you want to just kind of focus and deck thin as much as possible to see more of Shadowcat's cards, including cards like Adrenaline Rush or Civic Duty, depending on what your role is, if you are more of a justicey player or more of a damagey player, aggressive player. So including a couple of copies of this is really also going to be able to boost your stats up. And then again, if you have a turn with a couple of Shadowcat surprises, you can get like a couple of activations at a higher attack rate. 100%, this is going to be cards that will be extremely worthwhile. All right, then if you want to play the combo, obviously Colossus and Shadow and Steel, because Colossus doesn't come in her kit. So the Colossus ally comes in basic and Shadow and Steel. This is again a defense and an attack card. So again, plays off of her kit where you can do a lot of fun stuff. And then finally, I don't tend to go to Alter Ego that much with Shadowcat. I think she's very good. But if you are leaning into those confuses and you want to be able to cycle those cards, Mutant Education, a couple of copies of that will definitely not be too much in your deck. Depending again of the strategy you were going for, if you are planning on going to Alter Ego in a multiplayer game, obviously these cards are going to be great to shuffle your Quick Shift, shuffle your Shadowcat Surprise, and all those really good cards that you need at the right time. So 100% Mutant Education is what you want to see. All right, guys, so on that note, that wraps it up for our ultimate guide to Shadowcat. I hope the synergies were clear. I hope that you guys have a better understanding of the character and how she can definitely shine in solo, in multiplayer. She is definitely a very strong hero that has a very unique style of play, and it's a style of play that I've appreciated, not as much as Colossus, but I have appreciated her synergies and what she can do in the different aspects. So definitely a big heart for Shadowcat. So guys, on that note, make sure that you've subscribed to the channel. If you want, leave some comments. Tell me what you think about this this video and this series. And again, if you have any comments that you want to add to or something that I have missed or something to clarify, definitely let me know. And on that note, guys, we'll see you in a couple days. I'll have an ultimate Shadowcat video where we'll see her play off against multiple scenarios, kind of like the the Colossus Unchained video where I just let loose in every aspect against some very tough villains. All right, so there you go, guys. On that note, keep on playing Marvel Champions, have some fun, and just remember, play the game. Ciao, ciao.